There she is. We only got stopped by Shelley because we see her
You can see it up here. Shares everywhere up here.
I don't see her yet.
I have one. No, I'm with you.
County Commission will come to order. All commissioners are present. Commissioner Peach is appearing by Zoom at the present time. The first matter before us is the approval of the minutes. Thank you by Commissioner Ross for approval of the minutes. Do we have a second? Thank you. Motion or second by Commissioner Knopf for approval of the minutes. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Hi.
Next is approval of the order of the agenda. Does anyone have anything they need to change? Motion for approval. Motion by Commissioner Ingen to approve. Is there a second? Second by Commissioner Peach. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Hi.
Motion is approved, the order of agenda. Next is the order of the consent agenda. Are there any items that any commissioner would like pulled?
Make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Thank you very much.
Second.
Motion and a second to approve the consent agenda. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Hi.
The consent agenda is passed, and we move to the tax equalization director.
Mr. Chair, members of the commission, I have a couple things today. The first is I would like your blessing on attending the 2022 NACRO conference in Desert, South Dakota, June 26th through the 30th. I do have budgeted money for this.
I make a motion to approve that.
Motion and a second to approve. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Hi.
Opposed? Approved.
The next items I have are for two abatements. The first is for the year 2019 by MPI Limited Partnership number 110. The applicant requests that the 2019 true and full value be reduced from 2,761,200 to 1,116,978. The parcel is a 40-unit multifamily property providing housing for low-income individuals. It is a 4-story wood frame building with no basement, built in 2007. The applicant did not provide an appraisal to support its submitted value. Rather, the applicant submitted income and expense information. I feel that the applicant did not provide clear and convincing evidence to support the values they are requesting. Ms. Lizer's analysis of using the 3 approaches to value, cost, income, and sales led to her recommendation of reducing the value to 2,479,200. Attached is a copy of Ms. Lizer's staff report to the committee of the whole with her findings, conclusions, and recommendations to the Grand Forks City Council. It is my opinion that Ms. Lizer's value is fair and equitable. The local governing body recommended that the application be approved in part and reduce the value to 2,479,200. The applicant finds this value acceptable and they are not present today. I recommend the application be approved as recommended by the local governing body and that we adopt the findings, conclusions, and recommendations approved by the Grand Forks City Council.
Any questions? Any motions?
You approve the reduction as they settled it.
Do we have a second?
Second.
I would second that motion.
Mr. Ross beat you, Commissioner Peach, but thank you.
Thank you.
So we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion on this matter? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Hi.
Opposed? Motion's passed.
The second abatement is for the year 2019 by Civic Auditorium Limited. The applicant requests that 2019 true and full value be reduced from $3,091,700 to $1,232,920. This is a 40-unit multifamily property providing housing to low-income individuals. It is a 3-story wood frame building with no basement, built in 2011. Again, everything is very similar like the other one. The local governing body recommended that the application be approved in part and reduce the value to $2,825,300. It's almost easier to read that than this. It's my age.
Welcome to our world.
The applicant finds the value acceptable as well. And I would recommend the application be approved as recommended by the local governing body, and that we adopt the findings, conclusions, and recommendations approved by the Grand Forks City Council.
Any questions?
Commissioner Falco, I'll make a motion to approve the
Thank you.
Mr. Chair, I would second the motion.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes.
Thank you, that's all.
Thank you. Public health.
Good afternoon, Chairman Falk and members of the commission, Debbie Swanson from Grand Forks Public Health Department, and I will be providing a very brief update today. Michael Dulitz and Andrew Williams have prepared the report that you have before you, and I'm only going to cover slide 1 and slide 2, or actually slide 2 and 3. The bottom line is kind of our summary of where things are at right now, and under our strengths, our case rates continue a rapid decline in Grand Forks County, and the cumulative case curve is starting to level out, and you'll see that in the slides within the presentation. The hospitalization rate is decreasing, but not rapidly. That's likely due to the severity of illness of the cases, very possibly. Weaknesses are that our case rate remains high from our baseline or where we'd like to see it, and positivity remains above 10%. I think it dropped today 10%, but the average is still above 10% because we had some very high positivity rates recently during the Omicron outbreak. Some opportunities, I won't cover those because I think they've been covered with the exception of the last bullet, which is we now have COVID take-home tests available for the public. The state is distributing about 1.5 million. We think we'll have about 100,000 to distribute here in Grand Forks. Fortunately, we have a lot of partners that will be helping us with this work, including some very public places. We have only been able to get them out into Northwood as far as our county sites thus far, and then Spectra Health is providing to Larimore, but we've been in touch with all of the other county communities in the county and their officials, and we have plans to set up sites in all of the communities. That home testing program was rolled out really rapidly, so we hope that the public takes advantage of it, takes take-home tests for opportunities to travel or visit family or visit people who are vulnerable. It's a great way to test and stay home if you do test positive. We do not have those reported to us, but we do provide instructions for individuals who do an at-home test. And then our threats continue to be that we have had an increase in cases in the 20 to 29 age group. This is a group that we've been concerned about all along because they have very low vaccination rates, and we're attempting some creative ways to increase vaccinations in that particular age group. Overall, vaccinations are really declining. We used to do a few hundred a day, and now we're down to less than 100 across all sites in Grand Forks County. But we continue to see a few people trickle in just starting their series, which is good. Pfizer pulled their application from the Federal Food and Drug Administration for a vaccine for those children ages 6 months to 4 years, awaiting some additional data. Doesn't have anything to do with the safety of the vaccine. The vaccine's safe in that group. It simply relates to the fact that they know that there will probably be a third dose recommended for that age group to get full efficacy. And they don't have the data on that third dose yet. They have good data on doses 1 and 2. So unfortunately for those parents, grandparents that are waiting for children ages 6 months to 4 years of age to be vaccinated, they may need to wait until probably April. If you could advance to the next slide, Debbie, the week in review data you can see there, and you can see how the sum of 7-day cases has really dropped considerably from that second week in January to just this past week through February 12th. It's been a really significant drop. But you'll see the total incidence of our cases is at 21,600. That's how many people have tested positive in our county. So that's a significant number. And then Grand Forks Public Health is the very bottom line. You can see how, or the bottom 2 lines, you can see how much our vaccinations have dropped from that early part of the Omicron wave to present day. And then testing has been fairly stable, dropped a little bit this last week. That's all I'm going to cover in the data. The rest of it you can review, but I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Okay, thank you, Debbie. I'd like to see these numbers. It's great. So, but I've read somewhere there's another virus that's out there now showing its ugly face. You heard anything about that?
Commissioner Knopf, I've heard about another possible what's called a subvariant of Omicron,
Yeah.
but I don't have a lot of information about that. I first heard about that a few weeks ago, but it's been fairly quiet, but I'll look for some data and send it your way.
Because the article that I read last was, I think it was yesterday, that it's in all the states.
Possibly.
So, and just wanted to know if that's,
I believe that hasn't been classified as a variant of concern yet, but a variant of interest, but I'll get back to you for sure on that.
and then my only other question is, are they looking or are you hearing anything about another booster?
Commissioner Knopf, we have been hearing about a lot of different things relative to what's on the horizon for vaccination for COVID-19. And the latest that I've heard is that very likely it will end up being, at least for some time, a seasonal thing that we'll start to see an increase again like we do with the flu seasonally, and that we may need additional doses either annually or seasonally. Whether or not that's one booster or another series again, I don't know yet.
And then the numbers you say, I mean, they're down, but the hospitalizations, they're more serious. I think last week because there were like maybe 11 that were in ICU and 4 that were on ventilators.
I believe, Commissioner Knopf, that one day last week, Ultra reported 14 cases that were hospitalized and 10 of them were in the ICU. And of those 10, 4, I think 3 were on ventilators. So yes, sometimes patients will drop off the list of COVID positive because they're past their isolation period, but they're still hospitalized. We don't always have that information.
Thank you. Thanks for all that you guys do.
Thank you.
Thank you.
City of Grand Forks is next. Phelan.
Chair Falk and members of the County Commission, thanks for having us here this evening, this afternoon. I'm going to go over the boutique hotel first and put a period on that one, and then after we're done with that one, I would go further. So I'm going to give the project overview, and my friend and colleague Maureen Storrs, our finance director, is going to give you kind of with the property tax incentive for the college. I'll tell you how the West has been won so far on this boutique hotel, and in particular, we had the local government advisory committee get together, and as you recall, when we have mixed use developments, we do a third-party financial analysis, and Baker Tilly did that, and our advisor is Michaela Hewitt. So she did a review on this. We did together in January, and thank you, Commissioner Falk and Engen, for attending the meeting, and we had a briefing on the boutique hotel itself. We had positive testimony on behalf of Visit Greater Grand Forks and Julie Rake, and hoping to support the project. We also had testimony from Keith Lynn and the Grand Forks Region EDC that this is a real positive project for our community. So we did have some testimony in that regard. Ms. Hewitt, on behalf of Baker Tilly, did a third-party analysis on this particular project, and I just want to go through the particulars. This project started pre-pandemic, and what it was originally envisioned was the surface parking lot that's adjacent to the existing Edgewood corporate center, if you will, with the skies and everything. It was envisioned that the hotel would be a boutique hotel with an event center with commercial space. That's how this project was envisioned to start with. The pandemic occurred, and Mr. Geezy sized the project down from what it was originally intended. So during the pandemic, what Mr. Geezy did is that he created the event center on the 5th floor of the existing Edgewood building, reduced the commercial space in the existing building, and then turned towards this boutique hotel that I'm going to concentrate on today as just creating a standalone boutique hotel and really size down the project from its operation. I think pre-pandemic, Mr. Geezy was looking probably at a 35 plus or minus investment, and really what we have in front of you with boutique hotel is about a $20 million investment. So he did scale down in particular. I want to let you know is first off, this project, both the event center on the 5th floor of the existing building and the boutique hotel received the Renaissance zone approval. And so generally our whole downtown is a Renaissance zone per the state statute. And so in that case, projects that meet qualifications, they get a 5-year 100% property tax and a 5-year state income tax. So both parts of the project got those 2 approvals. We further went to, as part of Mr. Geezy did ask for a 15-year 100% on both the boutique hotel and the event center. And what Ms. Hewitt came back with is that the event center itself did not justify or need beyond 5-year tax incentive. And so really the focus for this particular incentive is solely on the boutique hotel, which is the new build. And primarily on the surface parking lot. It will bleed over into the existing building just because there'll have to be some connection points to the 2 buildings. So when I talk about the boutique hotel, it is solely the pilot itself, the years 6 through 15 is only on the new build that Mr. Geezy intends to start this spring. We've had a lot of discussions. Our Grand Forks School Board, they put us through the paces on the boutique hotel. And so they asked lots of questions on this particular project. So it started out being Ms. Hewitt and the local government advisory committee moved forward with 100% tax exemption in years 6 through 10. And then years 11 through 15 was 80%. And so we moved that forward and first went to the school board, and they had some further conversations with Mr. Geezy in the city of how could we extract more value from that proposition. We did go back to the school board and adjusted it because, you know, their needs right now are to get money sooner rather than later as part of this increment. So we brought back a 90% year 6 through 10 and 90% 11 through 15. Still gets us to the overall 90%, but they would get that 10% up front. Along the way, we had a couple meetings on this on the boutique hotel. Mr. Geezy did follow up and say that he's willing to compromise, that he was going to reduce the number of rooms to mitigate some of his risk. And he was probably looking at in and around 81 rooms, and was going to scale it back to 76 rooms, and he felt that would mitigate some of his room risk. But scaled on the project, but not substantial enough that we would want to be concerned. And so really what we have in front of what the school board has approved last night, and I think what we would move forward to the city council. The city council public hearing is on March 7th. And so right now we have briefed the park district, and they're part of the city tax incentive, and they thought, you know, this is a good project, let's move ahead. School board approved this 90/80 incentive last night. And then you guys are the last batter up on this thing, and then we'll end up at city council to cap this off with a public hearing. The school district did ask the city council, and I had a conversation with Mr. Falk on behalf of the county commission. Would there be any way that the city council or the county commission would negotiate some of their incremental increase on this project back to them, knowing that, hey, they got some issues. And we had the conversations at city council, and I think the city council probably would have negotiated because they want the project to move forward. I think the good thing with the school board is they approved it last night 6-1 without any negotiation. So I did let them know, and I talked to Mr. Falk, and I did call the school district and Dr. Brenner to say that, everyone has their role with A Story. And you guys have challenges on the expense side, on the revenue side. You have future construction projects, just like we do. It would probably be hard for all of us to do that. So great thing is that's off the table right now, and really I think what we want to move forward with is the 90% tax exemption for year 6 through 10, and then 11 through 15 would be at the 80%. It would be a little bit of a scaled down project, but not substantially at all. And what we try to describe to the school board is these tax incentives, in particular in this case, again in 15 years, but that boutique hotel is going to be there 50+ years. So let's try to drive as much value at the start of construction as possible, knowing that once the building is up, we're going to live with what's there for 50+ years in advance. So along the way, just so you know what Mr. Geezy, I want to speak on his behalf, what he's really committed to, and you should know, is similar to the Grand Forks County and the city of Grand Forks. He's committed to the Career Impact Academy. So he talked about his investment, his personal and his corporate investment to building that facility. His investment to want to create internship opportunities for high school students, employment opportunities for high school students. So that played well with the school board, that he's engaged not only in the Career Impact Academy, but he's going to be engaged in that hotel and giving people culinary and hotel experiences. So they may want to have great job experiences at a boutique hotel, and may want to stay in Grand Forks and go somewhere else. And that really played well. He's going to create some additional jobs with the boutique hotel also. So he's looking at 103 direct jobs, 126 indirect jobs, some of which are already there in the restaurant, but he's going to expand that, because really what he said with this boutique hotel, in order for the event center to be successful, in order the restaurant to be successful, we need a boutique hotel. And he thinks that he puts all 3 of those together, they can be a profitable enterprise. Right now with 2 parts of the stool, it's got questions financially, but he's willing to commit to the boutique hotel to make all 3 work together. And he thinks they can make enough money for him to be successful. And if anyone's going to be successful financially, it's going to be Mr. Geezy. He's proven that over and over again in all his different business ventures moving forward. We have also talked to, I think Mr. Hodak is here too, and the other one who testified on the need for incentives, it was Mr. Hodak at the local government advisory committee. Mr. Hodak gets to visit with hotel operators annually, and they're all struggling. So you look at their numbers, not only on what their room rates are and what they're occupied, those are significantly down from if you look even at 24, 2015. And so when Mr. Hodak looks at the revenue expense sheets, he did testify to the fact that this project has significant risks. It is going to be more of a higher end hotel, and there's going to be very few developers other than Mr. Geezy that would want to move forward with this kind of a risky investment. So we had a lot of conversations. So with that, I guess what I'm asking you today is to move forward with the pilot tax exemption of 90% years 6 through 10, 80% years 11 through 15. And I'd like to ask Maureen Sorsad just to let you know what that increment means. I think we've sent it out in advance, but she'll kind of go over what those numbers mean to the whole pie, what it means to the county commission.
Just to go back to when Mr. Ingan and I went to the general meeting, but Mr. Geezy's presentation also was that there's substantial risk here. In fact, most of his real estate investment trust people that he used to invest in building projects would not put their money into this project, in his opinion. So he's going to have to go a lot of this on his own. So it is, I think, a risky project, but one that's probably needed in the future.
I think with the tax exemption, Baker Tilly and Michaela Hewitt, they've confirmed with the tax incentive that's built in, that it's a more viable project to move forward with the investors. Mr. Geezy, to Mr. Falk's comment is, he'll probably be one of the, probably the sole investor that his investment group will not be investor, because he talked about getting returns of 15 to 16% we're probably talking an 8 to 10% return on the investment. And that probably leaves Mr. Beasley's going to be the sole investor. And I think we're very fortunate to have Mr. Beasley at the point in time in his career that this is a bit of a passion project for him, that he really wants to move forward on behalf of the greater community. And we'd have to work long and hard to find another enterprise that would want to invest in a downtown boutique hotel in Grand Forks. And we really are fortunate to have Mr. Beasley because I don't think we're going to find anybody else. And we gave the one example, people talk about the new boutique hotel in downtown Fargo on Broadway. That's attached to the high rise, attached to the RDO corporate headquarters. The city of Fargo granted that 100% 20-year tax exemption. So what we're offering down here is much less. And Mr. Beasley also testified to the fact that he wants to make that even better than the one that's in downtown Fargo, really to make Grand Forks shine throughout the region and the state. And so he really wants to make this a showcase for the community. So with that, I'd hand it over to, maybe go over that spreadsheet.
I just asked you a question. Todd,
Yes.
so when does that 10-year period start?
The 10
Is it when they open up for business, or is it start
It'll be
today, or when we approve it, or what?
Yeah. It will start, in this case, it's gonna have a 2-year lapse, and Maureen will go over that spreadsheet, because what's gonna happen is the event center is complete, however, the boutique hotel is not. We're gonna give it a 2-year build, and so once the boutique hotel is done, then the first 5 years of the Renaissance Zone will start. And so it'll be a 2-year delay. We'll look at the full value of that new event center. Mr. Hodak has assessed that additional value of that building of almost $1 million that we'll receive over 2 years. Then it'll go away for 5 years, and then that increment will build in. So as you look through that spreadsheet, it should kind of go over how everything's kind of come together. But it will be a 2-year delay while that boutique hotel is.
Thank you, Todd. Good afternoon, commissioners. I did give you a hard copy. It looks like it didn't come through the quality very well on the scanned-in copy. But as Mr. Phelan stated, we put together just for you a draft illustration of the estimated property tax collections based on this project with the parameters that Todd spoke of, with the 90% first 5 years of the pilot and 80% the following 5 years. And also included on here is that Renaissance period of time for those 5 years. So I've got this broken down for you in the 3 shaded periods of time. The pre-project value on this is $3.557 million. Like Todd stated, there's a period of time where it increases just under $1 million for the impact of the event center. And then bringing on the total construction value for a post-project value of about 19.5 million is the estimate that we've used in this projection. The first 5 years, as stated, includes that exemption for the Renaissance period of time to include the event center. And then through the pilot, the event center is not applicable to the pilot. That's just for the portion of the hotel. So that's why you see that change in timing there. And then with the yield, as far as collections, the timing, Todd kind of went through that, but we would project first year's collection or the first year of that Renaissance period, 2024, after construction, and then the pilot period beginning in that year 2029 and going forward. Based on that, and we do have the county state, the state portion's minimal, that is together there, but your portion is the majority of that column there that you can see. You currently collect taxes of about $13,000 annually. Beginning with that year 6, then you would see roughly 22,000. That would go up in the next 5-year period, 27,000, and then after, when everything is fully taxable, 72,000 a year. Majority of that being for the county, small amount for the state. All this, I just want to asterisk that it is based on holding the value the same over the period of time. Also, the estimates are based on no changes in the mill levy. So for purposes of this illustration, that's how this illustration is put together. But I'm available if anybody has any questions.
Yes, Commissioner Regan.
When you estimate that the value is staying the same, would it not likely increase somewhat over those many years? I mean, it's older and all that too, but sometimes property goes up. How do you see that in your crystal ball?
Commissioner Engen, County Commissioners, there, it may be a more of a question for our city assessor, but I know with the hotel industry, we didn't want to show any inflationary factor on here for purposes of illustration, so you can see that the impact of the pilot exemption itself, we thought it best to show on a flat scale. I will also point out the second part of the attachment is just a graphic to show you this time period in picture form, just showing, first of all, that Renaissance, if you can bring that up, Debbie, that Renaissance period. So the bottom line, of course, is if no project moves forward. And then that top line is the impact, I guess, of the project moving forward. So that first portion there, you can see that Renaissance period. You do see the benefit right away up front, as Mr. Phelan stated, with that event center coming on the tax rolls, and then it hits that Renaissance period. And then with the 90 and 80, you see those 2 5-year periods of time, and then when it's fully taxable.
Any other questions?
Yeah, the only other thought I had, I struggle with it. I'm all about economic development, don't get me wrong, and you guys have done a great job doing that. My struggle is that concerns for the smaller hotels that are around that are in Hertzville, they're struggling. And then the fact that county's struggling and we're hoping to do home rule and propose a sales tax to the public. So while we're saying we'll forgive this or take a reduced amount, we're hurting as well, and along with everybody else, I struggle with that one. And so, but nothing against anything that you've done.
Commissioner Mott, now the only thing I will add to that is with the increment in the pilot, they're still going to be paying taxes on the current value that's in place. So this is a delay of property taxes on increased value, but nothing will be taken away.
I would say, Commissioner Mott, that's a very good point. We thought about that. We think this is unique and different in the fact that we do not have any hotels in the downtown area anymore. We've been knocking down more hotels than we've been building. And it's really a distinct boutique hotel attached to the center. So we think it's unique, it's different from the other hotels, and something we really need in the community. And I think importantly, I don't think we're going to be able to move forward without the incentive. The project will not move forward. And it was good that we had a third party review and really they came back with us. Without this, the likelihood of the project moving forward is unlikely. And even with that, there's a significant risk of with Mr. Peachy, and because he's got some pretty good room rates from the review that Caleb Hewitt let us know, pretty good occupancy percentages. So he's really going to have to market and do well on the hotel, but it gives us some security that he's the guy that's going to move forward with it. It's been so successful in so many other different ways and wants to really make this successful.
I think one of the pieces of information I remember from the previous meeting too is the room rates on this hotel are fairly substantial, and so they aren't going to compete with smaller hotels. This is a high-end hotel with high-end services. So he's not likely.
Staffing and things like that, and that's a big thing to a lot of businesses, where we are today, and I don't see that changing much in the future. So it's more than the money part of it, it's the rent positions and things like that as well for smaller entities out there who have been with us for a long time, in our community.
he talked about kind of multiple using his employees, whether they're a restaurant, at the event center or at the hotel, that he really needs to maximize all three of the different employees. And he is operating the, kind of the event center up north on North Third too. I can't remember the name off the top of my head, but
Oh,
That's-
yeah, the one.
that's one more
where the-
additional
the
event
Pet
center.
shop or the pet,
yeah, next to
place, yeah.
the pet,
because where
Hotel.
Simonson's used to be the next block over. Yeah.
next to the Simonson's.
That's his too, huh?
Yeah, that's it. So he's gonna plan to continue to use that. Just want to niche with that, but, so, he's taking some risks and he's trying to, the other thing he really talked about, he's got some young entrepreneurs that he's working with, trying to build up that people that are as part of his ownership group and his management group that are working all these. So he's really at the point of his life where I think he's trying to give back to those around him and try to set them up for success in their careers and really set up Grand Forks for success longer term.
Any other questions? Is anyone interested in making a motion?
Sure.
Yes, Commissioner.
I will move approval of the pilot for this hotel and the amount of 90% for the, after the Renaissance time period, then it would be 90% for years 6 through 10 and 80% for 11 through 15.
That work for you, Mr. Phelan?
Yes, yeah,
Okay.
that is.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion, we have a second by Commissioner Ross. Do we have any further discussion on this matter? Oh, we got,
So this is sort of like the other tax increment financing that we've been involved in pilots. The tax that comes in is at this level now. We are thinking ahead, not for the time that we're maybe on the commission, 15 years from now. There are several things that are going to start paying off for the county. And I think we need to think ahead that way. If it hadn't been for the fact that this is a unique hotel, I could understand that we don't necessarily have to give a break to one hotel versus another, but I think under these circumstances, this is a win-win proposition.
even in year 6, we're gonna be making $9,000 more tax in the county than we are right now. So we are gonna get money earlier than the 15 years, but Commissioner, if you have.
So, okay, just so that I have this right. So for the first 5 years, it's 100%?
100% on the increased value.
Okay, and then,
And then it'll go into the 90, or you'll get that 10% increment, years 6 through 10. And then in years 11 through 15, you'll get 20% of the increased value. And then at the end of 15 years, then it's 100% tax. And I agree with Mr. Engen. Perhaps we should have been more aggressive, 15, 20 years ago, because a lot of those are up at this point in time. And if you look at our friends to the south, they've got, if you look at their, just in their downtown area, a lot of those buildings are gonna come off pretty soon here, and they're gonna have some large increases in values. And their property taxes are coming in line, just because they were more aggressive in the year 2000 to 2010. And of course, we had flood recovery, and we were involved in a lot of different things, but you're gonna see if you look at down that part of those, for example, a lot of those are gonna come out in the next 10 years, and you're gonna see some really big jumps.
Any other discussion? Hearing none. All in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The motion passes.
Chairman Paul, coming up.
Oh, you have more?
We're gonna have a full song now, and I'm gonna hand it over to Keith, and we're not planning a formal presentation, but we've been having some robust conversations at City Council. And so I'm gonna ask Keith to give an overview of the the economic development part of the project. I'll talk about what the city's been working on to support the project, and then I'll ask Maureen to come up there and anchor us home on the. Thank you, Mr. Phelan. Good still afternoon, Commissioner Chairman Falk, and members of the commission. Keith Lund with the Grand Forks Region Economic Development Corporation. I really want to start, first of all, and say thank you for your support and partnership with the Grand Forks Region Economic Development Corporation. And it's more than financial support. Really appreciate the really robust participation from Commissioner Eng and Mr. Ford in terms of on our board of directors. So appreciate the strong partnership that we have. Well, I've been asked to just kind of really quickly run through how Economic Development Corporation has introduced this opportunity, some of the key steps and milestones along the way, and really talk really quickly about the benefits that we see to both the agricultural community as well as the economy at large. UBC mission to expand economic opportunity for citizens of the Grand Forks region through industry growth and diversification. I think that's really the key part of that definition, is really to grow and expand the industry in our region. This project is about that, the Food Fund project. We have a number of targeted sectors that we build on. Any strong economic development platform is really based on leveraging your strengths, either current strengths or emerging strengths. Agribusiness, I really think, is a leading one. And just realized that I'll be coming up on 16 years with the Economic Development Corporation next month. And I think by far that's been the leading sector in terms of capital investments since my time at UBC. We develop opportunities in many different ways. Sometimes they're through personal networks, other times supplier networks, regional industry with local expansion, conferences and trade shows, although that's probably the least of that category. And as is the case, in this case, through the state of North Dakota, in many cases, projects of this magnitude will engage a site selector, and they'll start at the state level to try to understand the business climate, the ability, for the project to be served, and that's what happened here. So Fufang engaged before we knew it was Fufang. Project Peony was a code name for a little while. They engaged the company Biggins, Lacey, Shapiro and Company. They're a North American site selector that has offices across the United States. We received a proposal on June 19th, and we turned that around on June 26th. He's not here this evening, but Brandon Bombach on our team really did yeoman's work to pull together a lot of information, a lot of infrastructure requirements that the project has that we needed to respond to and demonstrate that this region could support. And so we responded on June 26th. Ultimately, and I think but just to repeat, the project is a wet corn mill, and that will process 25 million bushels of corn, and will, through a various processing, create enzymes that will ultimately use in animal feed, livestock feed, animal nutrition, I guess is the terminology that we've been using. Again, the site criteria, 370 acres, corn feedstock, natural gas. There's been a lot of conversation about that: water, wastewater, electricity, rail, and transportation. So heavy in terms of infrastructure needed for support. We talked a little bit about the site, just to let you know. I think you know where the site is, just north of Philadelphia Macaroni and DR Simplot, north of 27th Avenue North, 370 acres. When projects look for sites, they look for a couple of different things: current and future zoning to make sure that it's zoned appropriately. Take a look at like businesses, and if any of you at the time on Valentine's Day watched the City Council, we put a map up there that showed that there are a number of light agribusinesses in the region where this project is going to be developed. Take a look at infrastructure availability, current, and the ability to extend. And then at the end of the day, available land with flowing sellers. There's been some discussion, just wanted to underscore here that there's no public investment in the land sale. It's completely a company to private sector transaction. So that's how that is unfolding. There were 25, we understand that there were about 40 initial responses, and 25 had some level of viability that were explored by the site selection company. We were informed in September of October 20 that we would be visited by the site selection company. When they came in October, a month later, we learned that we were one of 4 finalists, 2 in Nebraska, 1 in Iowa, and Grand Forks, North Dakota. That site selection effort was really coordinated by the site selection company, ALS. It was our first opportunity to meet the COO, Eric Sugaresh, has been to the community many times. It came from the state, as I mentioned. There were a number of state agencies that participated in that, the 2-day site visit, including Lieutenant Governor, who spent a significant amount of time with us, recognizing how important this project is for the state of North Dakota and for this region. So 2-day site tour, as I mentioned. first day was completely dedicated on site and infrastructure, the ability to serve. The second day was focused on workforce. They wanted to speak to education providers, training providers, but they also wanted to visit with companies that are operating within the region now. I want to report and underscore this as well, that they met with 7 companies collectively that employ over 1,600 people in our region. Mostly ag-related businesses, but some manufacturers as well. And they didn't want to hear from the hired help that the region could serve the project from a workforce standpoint. They wanted to hear from the companies that are operating in our region right now. And I'm pleased to say that each one of those 7 companies said, well, everybody knows what labor state and what the unemployment rate is, but they said, if you pay your people well, if you treat them right, we can be successful together and really encourage them and to really create opportunities, critical mass that could drive additional workforce attraction. So as much as I can say, I think those 7 companies representing 1,600 employees saying, we're welcome here really speaks volumes. Well, we finished that site visit and we felt pretty good about it, but you never know how things are going to turn out. In March, we were told that they're going to come visit us again. We learned that we were one of 3 finalists at that time, so we had made one more date. That was really an opportunity to get to know the community. So that was not the big state-involved site visit. It was really in terms of the community, met some of the leadership, and they wanted to really understand the community and the region's vibrancy and the ability to attract workforce. Which is really one of the main goals for that site visit. Again, felt pretty good about that, but you never know. They let us know in July of 2021 that they'd be coming back for a 3rd site visit. We learned at that time that we were one of 2 finalists. The focus of that site visit was to really try to confirm and understand some of the key elements of the proposal as they were nearing their final decision. We had the heavy state participation in that as well, because that was really kind of time to get down to it. The COO, Eric Tudoresh, called the mayor on October 27th and notified them that they had selected Grand Forks in this region as a home for their wet corn milling plant. And I'm sure you all read the Grand Forks Herald on November 6th when that was announced to the community. And there have been a number of discussions and a lot of negotiation, really ongoing negotiations really since that time. So that's really how we got to this point. I want to talk a little bit about the benefits to the community. There has been some discussion and some question about agricultural engagement in the process, farmer engagement in the process. I want to let you know, as we did last night at the city council, that there has been farmer involvement since day one. There has been farmer involvement in each one of the site visits. Even when they said they didn't want it, we got some farmers and I let them know that they could be successful. And they've been promoting this project. We had 2 farmers present last night at the city council meeting to talk about the impacts as they see it. Paul Spruill, I'm sure most of you, if not all of you, know that name, and Representative Jared Hager. He's a 4th generation farmer from the Amarillo area. He has an agribusiness, seed conditioning, and sales business as well. And he provided some testimony not only on behalf of the region and what this does for corn producers, but what it does for the state of North Dakota too. Suffice to say that they were very high on the project and encouraged to move forward. And then, while not testimony, we had someone representing North Dakota Growers Association in the audience. I'll let you know that they issued a press release on November 9th. And I like this quote from it, so I'm going to read it if you don't mind. It's 1 sentence. They said, going forward, we'll have the much needed direct to end user option that has been lacking in recent years in the Northern Valley. So I think that just really reinforced the things that the producers have been telling us, that the location of this plant will increase the corn basis, will improve profitability for farmers, and really just create more value for the region. So it's a big win for the agricultural community. We talked a little bit about economic impact. This is where I spent most of my life as an economic developer. Just to really quickly go over the numbers, the company has said that they will create 233 jobs at the plant when it's fully operational. That's the only number they gave us. The rest of the numbers are ours through additional analysis, so I want to be clear about that. Based on the jobs that they will create, we estimate that the average salary at the plant will be $59,000, a little more than $59,000. Those are direct jobs. Through economic analysis programming, we estimate over 700 additional jobs, or pardon me, over 500 additional jobs will be created. And through the community, either indirect, which are jobs that are there specifically because the plant is there. Transportation is a really key one to understand. And then also just as the community grows, other jobs that are needed at the grocery store and more businesses. The average salary of those jobs for those programmings is estimated to be a little over $63,000 a year. We took a look at the impact of Grand Forks Public Schools, and we believe that those 50 additional school-age children that will result from, I don't know if that's quite the right word, result from the employment growth at this plant. And that would mean over $500,000 extra revenue for the school district, which we're really happy about that, if that could be realized. And while we look, at the permanent employment and economic impact, we don't want to underestimate and overlook the impact from construction. There'll be over 1,000 jobs that were created, for a 2.5-year period of time while the plant is being constructed, and the salary of those jobs will be almost $73,000 per year. So we think it has a tremendous benefit to the community and a tremendous benefit to the regional community overall, and increased tax revenues at many different levels. I'm not going to go over the specific numbers. As you know, we at some level of negotiation pilot from a property tax standpoint, and we've had a conversation at the local government advisory committee. And the reason I understand, you're going to walk through the numbers. Years 1 through 10, 90% exemption. Years 11 through 20, 90% exemption, and then fully taxed in year 2021. One thing that I hope Maureen highlights is the fact that the value of the land now is being taxed at ag. And I hope she shares the numbers in terms of what that property value is intended to be once it's converted to an agricultural or commercial use, which in and itself will be an immediate win for all the taxing entities. So so in conclusion, we think that this is a strategic business investment, and economic development investment based on city, county, and state goals, benefits of the regional economy, ag economy. And we think the collective investment in infrastructure that's going to occur is not only going to benefit the project, but we'll also be able to use to build from and support future growth well beyond this project. Thank you for your time and attention. We have been answering questions after the presentation is concluded. Commissioner Falk and members of the County Commission. We've been having a series of meetings over the last several weeks regarding something specifically what we'll call in the development group for Fufang between the city of Grand Forks and Fufang Group Limited. And this is different than an infill development project like the Olivan is. This is going to require significant off-site infrastructure investment. So we've been working on it. So not only will we a prime agricultural area with lots of business incentives for agribusiness in our state, but these projects need to be located near a city where we can provide them utilities. And so we've been working a lot, even as part of the RFP process. And so we've been doing a lot of work, and there's a lot of work to be done. So just so you know, as part of our development agreement, and so we got a 40 to 50 page development agreement that we're working on with Fufang, that really spells out a lot of the local, state, and federal permitting that needs to require for us to move forward with the project. So there's a series of permits we're going to need both for this from the city and from Fufang, of course, to continue to move forward. And so one of the reasons why we want the development agreement so that we can begin to expend money in good faith to move forward with this permitting process. And so we've identified all the permits that are required to move forward with the project. And as part of all the permitting that's going to have to go on, what the city wants to do as part of this development agreement. So if the project does not move forward, we expend upfront money on infrastructure investments, permitting investments, that there's a way that we can get the money returned to ourselves as the city of Grand Forks. So as part of this risk mitigation, part of the local permitting, and when I talk about permitting, it's going to be all those environmental permits that are going to be required for both the city of Grand Forks and Fufang. And those permits will relate to infrastructure. They'll relate to emissions. They'll relate to traffic impacts, utility operations, water supply, water quality, operating risk of a facility like this. So those are all spelled out in that requirement, and within those broad categories that require federal, state, and local permits that we're going to be working on. All told, we'll be engaging with several state agencies as part of the permitting and funding process. So those are kind of the who's who of the state of North Dakota. It's going to be the North Dakota Department of Environmental Quality, the North Dakota Department of Water Resources, which is the new name for the State Water Commission. We're going to be looking at working with the Bank of North Dakota on financing, North Dakota Department of Commerce on some state incentives as part of this project, and then finally the North Dakota DOT, so the traffic and transportation issues, whether that relates to traffic or rail traffic. So it'll be a broad, the state has brought this project to us. We competed on behalf of the state of North Dakota. We're fortunate enough to win out over other Midwest states. And so it's kind of a broad reach. On the water side, we have significant investments. And right now, if you total up our investments in water, wastewater, stormwater, transportation, that's around $96 million of offsite infrastructure investments. And if this project is a $700+ million project with additional natural gas and other things, that's probably all told $1 billion project for our region, and all the investment comes into play. We're looking at, as part of our agreement spelled out as part of the development agreement, we're looking to offset those investments through funding grants, and those will be funding grants from federal, state, and local. And again, I need to thank you guys. You did designate $3 million as part of your waste ARPA funds, where water and wastewater infrastructure could be invested. We do have that as part of our development agreement, but again, the project has to move forward for us to move forward. And we're working with Ms. Nelson on that. So that's one cash grant. We're working on special assessments. A lot of this infrastructure will have special assessments involved in it. So they're going to own the property. So part of our security is above and beyond, some of the escrow accounts and letters of credit will be to own the land, and some of the assessments will be tied to the property itself. And then finally, utility rates. And so all these related activities, whether it's water, wastewater, stormwater, all have utility rates tied to them. What Hufang has agreed to do is that we've set aside a $5 million letter of credit for some of the infrastructure, and they've also have agreed to set aside an escrow cash account of $9 to $10 million to pay for some of their share of the infrastructure up front. So in lieu of us, financing some of this infrastructure on their behalf over the next 20 to 30 years, they've agreed to pay for their share of the some of the raw water and wastewater and set aside that in the cash account that will draw down. So it's pretty extraordinary. So I would say on this particular project, we have taken extraordinary ability. We've called this a historic project for Grand Forks. In a similar vein, it requires lots of work and effort, and this detailed development agreement is something one of a kind that we work on to try to protect the city and make sure that, but at the same time, work in good faith to try to get to yes on those things. Last night, we went over the development agreement. We have city council approval, at least recommending to themselves next week to approve it. And really, that just allows us to move forward in good faith and start real actions with protecting some of the city's investment, and things don't quite come together at the end. We approved task orders last night to get some initial work done of over $1.5 million to move forward. And part of these letters of credit and these escrow accounts. So if something doesn't come together, for whatever reason, we're protecting ourselves with both the letter of credit and escrow account. We've had a lot of discussions. And I think the first group you're going to hear is on the annexation part. So they've agreed to be annexed into the city. And if you look at a map, one areas that are not annexed into the city are the businesses along Highway moving north. And so really what this agreement spells out is that we're going to annex their site. Okay. But with all this infrastructure, you're going to hear that we're going to be able to serve the broader region. So essentially what we have for annexation, if I could draw a map in your mind, the city has annexed most of Mill Road. So as you go north on Mill Road, that's annexed into the city. Up to 27th Avenue North is generally annexed into the city, but everything moving north on 81, north of 27th is not annexed. By the end, the properties are going to be within areas of being able to serve them from a water, wastewater, stormwater perspective. It's going to be within our flood protection boundary. Really, this site is bounded by the diversion that goes into the river as part of our flood protection project. That's a separate matter. If they've agreed to be annexed, pay all the assessments and taxes and all the things we're going to do. There'll be a separate decision on how we move forward with these adjacent properties. So we're looking at what the impacts for these property owners will be on the taxation side. We're looking at what their estimated assessments will be on those properties. And just so you know, we'll be meeting with those property owners individually and going over what that means in advance of doing planning and zoning to work out some of those details. We've heard a lot of that. We're trying to make sure, we've heard a lot of conversations about environmental concerns, and we think all of those are addressed in the development agreement. They'll have to be further studied, further engineered, and with details to come into the future, and there's some showstoppers. Moving forward, the project we're ready as we move forward in all these various areas. So we're working on all those particular details. That's where we are today, and the important part of today is the pilot portion of that is embedded in the development. And so, and there's that pilot public hearing similar to Hollow Man Boutique Hotel is set at City Council March 7th. In advance, I have raised the Park District, which has given their thumbs up, even though they're stuck at the city. The school board did, they like this project because I think they like the revenue side of the whole project. They moved it forward right away, so we had less of a wrestling match on project versus so they move forward. It's really your opportunity to move forward the pilot. If you do approve it, the city council approves it on March 7th. You will be embedded into the step element agreement. It's one of the things that we delivered to Coupon, where we committed to that 90% exemption years 1 through 10, and then 75% years 11 through 20, and that's why we're here today, to get that off the list and have that discussed as part of the broader reach of what we're trying to do. But with that, I would ask Maureen just to go over with those financial numbers too, and then all three of us would be certainly willing to stand for the question.
Thank you, Todd. Mr. Ford is handing out, in case that copy didn't come through very well in your packet. Just the same type of illustration that we did for the Olive Dam, we did the same for the Food Farm project. Couple things to point out, as Mr. Lund stated, when if this project were to move forward and this land comes within the city and becomes developed, that land value becomes much greater value, which increases the tax rolls. I believe right now it's probably bringing to the county under $5,000, and then when it comes in, the estimate on the value of the land portion is 25 million. All said and done, the estimates that we have included in here for the building improvement value is roughly $352 million. So you can see the numbers for that period of time. We blocked out that 20-year pilot period on here, with the first 10 years being at 90% exempt, and the next 10 years at 75% exemption. So the collections based on that 10% and 25% in those periods of time. Once again, this is based on just holding flat, values flat over this 20-year time period, as well as for this purpose, no change in mills. So you can see the impacts of the dollars here. Couple other things to point out with the pilot, the land value is not subject to exemption. So 100% from the beginning on the value of the land for 100% taxable. Also, which is not reflected on here, we just gave you a clean 20-year period. During the construction period, it's actually per state law fully taxable during that period. We didn't estimate on here the value of that construction period and timing, but showing once the project is completed, going forward, showing that pilot, the impact. So with the county share of this, you can see with collecting on that 10% pilot period, but fully taxable on that land value, roughly $220,000 in those first 10 years, and then $418,000 the next 10-year period. And then if there is no change in the number of mills, it would be that 1.3, 1.4 million when it becomes fully taxable. You have any questions? I'm here to answer. Oh, also, I will just point out the graphic is also included there. That just shows that comparison. Once it would come annexed within city limits, that's how we're showing that. Before, there'd be no value. And then if the project were to happen, you can see the tax collections based on the number of mills allocated currently.
Any questions from the commission?
Chairman Polk, I would say that we did have an opportunity to visit two wood corn mills. There's one in North Dakota. It's the Cargill. Washington is our own wet corn mill. Personally, we have a lot of dry corn mills, including the Carrollton plant along I-94. But we did visit Fort Dodge. We visited Blair, Nebraska. Both of those were Cargill owned facilities, and both facilities have ancillary and we'll call it over the fence, what they call it, industries. And so what both cities have said, and looking at what they're doing in their communities, I think we can serve this industry. But what they've said is once the wet corn mill comes in, you're going to get other industries that are going to want to be here too. And so if you think the growth is going to stop in 3 years, we're going to get more and more growth in this business sector. And so, and it's been good growth. Both communities have said overall it's been a really terrific thing for their communities, and it's been positive for their area. And I'll speak for Fort Dodge. They used to be a stockyard community, meat processing. They lost that industry in the 80s, and really this industry has replaced that. And so they were really thankful because they had utilities and infrastructure that was sized for this meat packing industry that went away, and so this was able to replace that and replace really good paying jobs. And obviously they're in the heart of the Corn Belt, and so both communities talk positively. Not every day is a dozen roses, but it's not community. And we already have a lot of these industries in our community, from J.R. Simplot, Philadelphia Macro, Northwood Mill Elevator, American Crystal Sugar. And so we're used to doing, working with industry like agribusiness. And so we are an agribusiness community region. And that's following in both Fort Dodge and Blair, Nebraska.
Anything else for your presentation?
Can I ask a question?
Come forward to the mic and identify
Sure.
yourself for the record.
My name is Craig Spicer, I'm in Faulkner Township, and I'm on the other side of the issue with the food bank plant. And I don't know how much information you have on it, but I would like to tell the other side of the story. Mr. Phelan paints a great picture, and he's very good at what he does. But I don't really hear anything negative coming out of what he says. And the 100 or so residents and business owners that we are in contact with seem to think otherwise. And the first thing that happened was they kept this under wraps for a long time. They didn't tell our Faulkner Township commissioners about it. So the township commissioners had to actually set up a meeting with them before they would even let them know what was going on. As much interest as the commissioners had in this project, and they kept them in the dark. Okay, so that kind of tipped the scales into right away, there was a negative reaction, not only amongst our commissioners, who, by the way, the three of them, Mr. Schuster, Mr. Kramer, and Mr. Matichak, are all opposed to this. We couldn't be here today. I'm sorry, go ahead.
I'll interrupt for just a minute. You weren't the only ones in the dark. Our group was in the dark also, but part of that is, that's the way you attract these businesses. If you show your face card, so to speak.
Well, that's one way to look at it.
Yeah, you're gonna lose it. So it wasn't just you folks that way.
And the other way that I look at it is, with everything that they are offering this company, I mean, you could literally, I don't know what, pull from the table, and they would still accept it. Because we've given them more than we've given any company that comes from Grand Forks or North Dakota than any other company. We've set them up that there's no way they would reject this offer. Okay, now I'll start on that. Okay, the first thing you're doing is the tax break. A 90% tax break for 10 years. A 75% tax break for the next 10 years. Okay, I've been in business for probably 20 years in my location. Nobody gave me a tax break. Okay, all the 100 people that we represent in that area, nobody gave them a tax break. Okay, as far as I'm concerned, the EDC oversteps its bounds and tells a story that's very unbelievable to taxpayers. So now let's move on to the other things. Okay, the next thing is, and this concerns us why we're here tonight is, okay, first I'll ask a question, because I didn't come prepared enough because I didn't bring my notes, but let me kind of work my way through it here. Okay, the first thing is we found out that the county commissioners, you folks, allowed them to take $3 million. Did you give them $3 million?
3 million of ARPA money towards their wastewater system, yeah.
Okay, well,
But that's only if this project goes through. If not,
Right.
the money comes back to Grand
Okay,
Forks.
well, that's good.
Actually, it's never left us, but
that's good news.
Yeah.
Okay. And I know they've got a lot of safeguards that they're saying that they're covering on this company too, which that's neither here nor there. So, next down the list, they're talking about the traffic. Okay, I'm sorry, I gotta finish the annexation. So not only did they get $3 million from you, which takes it out of your funds, but now when they annex us into the city, you're gonna lose our tax revenue because we're in the county. So that's kind of a double whammy for the county, isn't it? That's just my point. All right, so there's another point. Now, down the line, the next thing is, once they annex us in, they are probably gonna reassess all of our property, which will drive our taxes up even more. The biggest thing is, this thing's all about jobs. And they tried to write us off as saying we were against progress and we were against growth, and that's not true at all. But the real truth is that these 250 jobs that they say are so great that they can't fill. Because I'll look everyone in the eye. Drive to a restaurant, drive around town, go to Economy, go to any hardware store, and ask them what's going on. They cannot fill the positions. They can't keep 2 doors open at the Home of Economy because they don't have enough help. But we are gonna fill these 250 jobs. Wow, great picture. Okay, I'm glad you got a job because there's a lot of people that won't go to work and they just won't. So whatever that brings on. Okay. Now the next thing is, so they annex us in, they want us to pay for the infrastructure. And the only reason that this comes up is because they would not have pushed this issue unless this Fufang Corporation was here. Because they didn't care, they had been working on trying to annex us in for a long time. They come across that we need their water, we need their fire, we need their whatever, storm sewers. Okay, we've already paid out of our pockets for all of that. We're all self-sufficient out there. We have water from Gilby, we have our own septic tanks, we have all of that. They tell you that we need them more than they need us. We don't need the city. I can bring you 100 people in here and they'll tell you the same thing. We, over the years, have paid our way, and that's another topic that they just keep throwing at us. Okay, so then we have to pay for the infrastructure, and we're gonna bring in 250 jobs. And so when we take those 250 jobs and we can't find anybody to work them, they're gonna take those jobs from Simplot. Okay, they're gonna take those jobs from the beet plant. They're gonna steal employees from other jobs to fill those jobs. They say, well, we'll bring people in. Well, what does that accomplish? You bring people in from out of state, you don't know who you're bringing in. High paying jobs, sure, there's gonna be some high paying, there should be. I'm all for that too. But at the same time, when they break down our workforce even more by taking jobs from other companies, it's not fair. This whole thing is not fair. Now, let's go to the next subject. And that would be when we build this new infrastructure, which is gonna be to the tune of $100 and how many million. And I know their track record. They're not very good with figures. And I'm sure you know that as well, because they can start at 110 million, and before you know it, it's 150 million, whatever. Okay, that's a number. These are all numbers. Okay, now, so the next thing is, you take the 150 million, they want that for the infrastructure. They need another 50 million to redo the water plant that they just built. $50 million more, okay, to handle the water that's coming into Fufang. Speaking of which is 6.6 million gallons of water per day. Okay, they're gonna take in 6.6 million, they're gonna discharge 3 million. There's 3 million gallons of some sort in there. It's gonna go up into our atmosphere, okay? And there's gonna be that's not my expertise, but there's a lot of guys that have come up here, which, while I'm thinking of it, I would like for all of you people to watch the last 3 city council meetings, because we've had a lot of input from the other side of this project. And before you decide to spend any more of our tax money, please do me a favor and watch those, because it's very interesting and there's a lot more facts there than I can give you today. Okay, so back to the infrastructure. So you take the infrastructure and you get it all built, and here comes 800 trucks coming in and 400 trucks going out every week. I'm sorry, they're saying a week. Now that number varies, but put that in your mind. 800 more trucks, 1,200 more trucks on our roads, okay? Now take the rail service, okay? Probably 4 to 5 more unit trains per day in Grand Forks. Imagine yourself, like I did about a week ago, I had to go west of town 5 miles on Demers. So I was going back and forth most of the afternoon. 26 minutes I sat for the rail cars, 2 rail cars that went through on Demers going through. Okay, picture that rail car going down 42nd Avenue across the university property, because there's no way out in the north. So everything's gonna go south. Okay, so you're sitting there and you're trying to get to the store, you're trying to get someplace, and all of a sudden, here comes a rail car. There you sit. Now that's one of probably 4 or 5 of those a day, or maybe more. I don't know what their numbers are there. Okay, so there's another factor that comes in. So back to the infrastructure. So you take 800 cars or 800 trucks a day, 1,200 trucks a week or whatever, and then you put them on those roads that we just built out of our taxpayer money. And those roads get destroyed by the trucks that come into the factory that they're trying to build here that we do not want. That's where we're coming from. Now, how about the pollution aspect? Okay. They tell you, just like Mr. Everything looks good. Thank you. I mean, wow, we're having a good deal here. Everybody's happy about it. Sure, they're happy till they start putting this plant together. Okay, for the record, the Red River Bio Plant, which Mr. Phelan proposed in and brought into our community. They've been operating for maybe a year or so. Okay, on the record right now from the EPA, $200,000 fine. $200,000 fine for dumping material, which I brought to the city council meeting last night. That if I brought it out here right now, you would all run out of this room because it smells so bad. Okay, the chance I didn't get was to open it up because he wouldn't let me. He didn't want to smell it. Okay, but we are going to have to smell it every day because that plant will be there. Only to the maximum of probably 10 times more, because this factory is the biggest factory that's ever been built. There it is again, pollution. They safeguard it, but they don't take care of it. So as I talked to the EPA guy, he had him in their office. He had the representatives from Red River Biodiesel in his office. We're working with them right now. They have an attorney. They're trying to fight this thing. They waived the $200,000 fine if they would clean up their act. Okay, now more pollution. They have holding tanks that they put their byproducts in. Okay, they fill them up so full that it smells. And I don't know if anybody, go ahead.
Are you talking about Fufang here?
No, I'm talking about Red River Bio. This is my example of how everything that can go, looks rosy, according to Mr. Phelan, kind of turns out to be the sour spot. That once it's built, okay, we're looking the other way now. Okay, so you take that. Now you take the, I don't know how many million gallons of bad water, polluted water, because there's holding tanks were too full and they were starting to smell, that they put down the sewer system of Grand Forks. That would have, from what I've heard, now, okay, this is a number, but for some reason it could have been up to $1.4 million fine. The city let them off with a $588,000 fine. Guess what they did with that? They waived it. I would like to have that $588,000 given to one of these businesses, one of the restaurants. And instead, bye-bye $580,000, no big deal. But when you get your plant running right, that's okay. Because we rubber stamped that plant in the first place, so we'll just look the other way. All right, so there's the pollution. Now, another good reason this deal's going through is because the landowners, I can tell you their names, I don't have to right now, got paid $26,000 an acre for farmland that was in use last year that had a beet crop on it. Wonderful, good farming land, okay, $26,000 an acre. The going rate for farmland last year, 2021, was $2,300 an acre. Wow, I wonder why these people wouldn't take this deal. Another, there it is again. Okay, now, for some reason, not that I don't trust these people from the EDC, but for some reason, they want to buy 370 acres when they were at the actual acreage that they need for this site would only be 40 acres. So I don't know if that's something that has been shuffled around to really make this thing happen. I know that there is a law in North Dakota that says a foreign entity cannot buy agricultural land. Hence steps these guys in. So they're going to buy the land and then they're going to rezone it to commercial. And now we are titled the new North End Industrial Park. Wow, sounds good, doesn't it? Okay, so you take all of these acres and you multiply the 26,000, somewhere around $8 to $9 million they got for that land. Okay. Now the next thing is, gotta get together here. The next thing is the timeline. They come to you, they get the $3 million or whatever. Don't get me, I'm here. The main reason we came, I didn't know they were gonna be here today. The main reason we came, and we would have brought our commissioners, but we just wanted to ask a few questions. Why you voted to give them the money and how it transpired and what was with that deal, because nobody knew. Just like when they brought this corporation to town, nobody knew. So what happened was, we needed to find out a little bit more about the project, and nobody could give us any figures of how much it was going to cost us when they put us out of business because they were going to overtax us by annexing us into the city. No answers, still no answers. Went to the meeting last night, got no answers. Now they're on top of it, okay? To the mayor. The mayor's platform when he ran for office was, and I talked to him last night, your platform was you were gonna increase small businesses and you were gonna work for small businesses. He told me last night that he was having a real tough time because of this issue of forging ahead with what he said when he got elected. Okay, now I think his heart is in the right place. Some of these other people, I'm not so sure. But I know for a fact that this thing is not what it seems to be. And we're gonna get down to the basics of, it's a Chinese-owned company. And as hard as that is to believe, because it seems to be like in a kind of just an ozone or whatever, that people go, oh, that's not gonna happen to us. We have a couple of documents or a couple of articles from The Guardian, who places the COO of this company connected to the 12th Congress of China back in 2012. We've seen some stuff about him that says he's connected. We don't, if I could prove it 100%, I wouldn't be here, whatever. But they're suspect to the fact that they are Chinese connected. And every person that I talk to, as much as you talk about pollution, you talk about infrastructure and all the negatives that we've come up with to their plan, they are concerned that there is a Chinese connection. And why would we give those people the kind of money that we should give another company, not a foreign company? Hence, back to another point. So how far does it go up the ladder that we're concerned with this? Okay, a lot of people have seen videos with our governor, our senator in China. Okay, I'm just going down this road just to lay some groundwork. Okay, the reason being is because the next thing that happens, and I don't know how far they went, but they got $30 million from the Legacy Fund to bring in the gas line from Western North Dakota. Okay, why didn't they do that for us before this company came to town? $30 million from the Legacy Fund. I have a daughter-in-law that works in the school system. That school system, and I know why they got on board with this, because they have no funds. Everybody is aware of that, I'm sure, here tonight. Okay, who wouldn't accept the fact that they're promising all of these tax dollars when this company comes and starts running. I would say, sure, for anything for the schools. Where's our legacy money for the schools? Okay, but no, but let's bring this pipeline in and give them $30 million. It's suspect the question, that's all I'm saying. I watch Fox News and I don't hold that against me. Every time I turn the channel on, there's something on there about China. You can look at it, you can see our FBI director, Christopher Wray. He just had an article about how many
Every 12 hours,
times, go ahead.
every 12 hours, there's a new study on a Chinese company that's coming into the US.
That's from the FBI. So you, I mean, guess what? Michael Pompeo, he was on about a week ago, warning us about the Chinese agenda of infiltrating our country and sooner or later buying enough land and taking over. Right now, China has purchased over 800,000 acres of US property. So to me, just that aspect alone makes me nervous enough to say, I don't know. Okay, I run a small business. I'm not an expert. I'm just telling you what I know. That's it.
Could I please just have 5 minutes?
Thank you.
Stick to facts. Nothing but facts. My name is Dennis Cadillac. I own H2O.
One moment. If you need your name, step up to the
I
microphone.
am Dennis Cadillac. I own H2O Incorporated. I've been in business here in Grand Forks since 1984. Those gentlemen on that sign in 1987, I knew every one of them. Every one of them was one of the commissioners. Every one of them was one of my customers. Frank Matichek was gonna be here today to speak to you people, but he had to be at another thing down south in Pasadena on the bean company. Frank spoke yesterday and he told them what they're trying to do is they're trying to compare this plant to other things that don't equal it. The other plants they looked at in the United States are both American plants. Both those plants are built outside the city. You know, and then they brought in about the plants of American Crystal and these other plants. They all were built outside the city. Why are these people buying land outside the city, putting this on there, and then dragging it in the city and dragging us with us? What they're gonna do is they're gonna turn around and half the companies out with me are gonna go broke. I've been in business since 1984. And I paid my taxes. I'm never late, I'm always early. You can check with them. Fufeng is a communist company. That's our biggest threat in the world today, is communism. But why are we taking from Americans and giving to our biggest adversary in the world today? I've had to fight the city. This is my 4th time since 1984, just to get what I should have in the first place. They've cost me so much. I am so tired. They took my land when they put the dike in. They made promises. They broke every promise. My facility was open all through the flood of 1997. I have signed letters from Minn Kota and Northwestern Bell thanking us for keeping them going during the flood. Minn Kota was underwater State Mill. They'd be right down the State Mill from me. They had to fly a helicopter out to the road north of me, and we met them out there with the pump. I never had a drop of water on my floor in 1997. I operated all during the flood. I had people actually living at my place during the flood. Other people like electricians and that were here working on homes and that. Every day I made a run to Manville for videos to watch for all the people that were there. And you can even ask the sheriff's department, because there was one guy that would watch me every day. And he knew I was going a little fast, but there wasn't much traffic on the road because I take my motorcycle. But I got to fight the city continuum. Before that, it was just, I wanted a special use permit. to put some chemical in
You were another beggars.
where I was renting the building, which is a church the old Spicer built. Frank Matichak and John Grease both come to my aid at the meeting, and they said, why can't Mr. Cadillac have this special use permit? You can go buy the same chemical at Home of Economy, and 6 feet away there's candy bars. And they were storing the same stuff out on Gateway Drive, and it wasn't zoned out there for it. But constantly, I get pursued by the city, and all they want is more and more. Well, they're taking just about everything I got. Because if this one happens, I'm not gonna be able to stay in business no more. I know that. I've offered to sell my land several times. I offered to sell my building, my land, when they wanted to take my land for the dike. I wanted to move out of their way. I bought that property out there. Frank Matichak told me about it. It's the E.D. Knopf edition. Mr. Knopf was gonna move the John Deere tractor dealership out there. And then Mr. Knopf passed away. So Frank told me you want to hurry up and buy that before the city council changes that back from industrial to agricultural. So that's what I did. But I bought that land out there. It was well outside city limits. I didn't want to be inside city limits. I don't mind paying taxes. I pay my taxes every time I'm in city limits. I pay my taxes on my townhouse. But, you know, another very rude person told Mr. Spicer, why don't you get out of Grand Forks? He is out of Grand Forks, and Grand Forks is dragging him back in. And if you please review the last 2 videos, and you'll see the way I was dressed by Sandy right off the bat. You know, all I ask for is to be treated fairly. I'm a Grand Forks resident. I've lived here all my life. I hope to die here. My wife is 17 years my senior. And she said to me the other day, and by the way, she's still working. She said to me the other day, well, Dennis, if this happens, I guess we're gonna have to move. She was hoping to die in the home she lived in for over 30 years. Please look at those videos, and please stop and think about your friends and your family and the other people before we start thinking about somebody from another country. I beg you.
Thank you. And, you know, the problem on annexation always occurs, and I'll just jump in if somebody wants to talk, they can, but in fact, I remember 25 years ago, our home was outside the city limits and then we were annexed, and it wasn't a good deal at that time, but then we eventually fought through it, and it's worked out well. But I knew that when I moved there, because anytime that you are contiguous to a large city, you're gonna at some point be annexed. That's just gonna happen. There's just no way of avoiding it. The city grows and keeps growing, and they're not gonna leave an island in the middle of the city that's not their property. So it's, and we have no control here on the county commission over virtually everything that you've talked about here tonight. Annexation, jobs, you know, whatever. Ours is only on the pilot program. You know, jobs, I'll throw this story out. I was at a meeting in which the chairman of the Federal Reserve Board, and this group has heard me say this before, from Minneapolis was there, and there was concern here in the city at that time, this was probably 8 years ago or so, about jobs. And his point was, you don't have a job problem, you got a salary problem. If you pay, they will come. And he evidenced Western North Dakota, where they paid and people have moved in their community. And I think that's what's gonna have to happen here with Fufang. The jobs aren't necessarily gonna come from the community, some will, but there are gonna be people that will move here for good paying jobs. Which, you know, our city has to have that. We have to grow. We can't sit. I originally came from Jamestown and north of there, but anyway, that town isn't much larger than it was when I left there almost 50 years ago. So if you don't take some risk with development, your community is just going to stagnate and it's not going to grow. And it seems to me, and I know this isn't gonna make you folks feel any better about it, but there's probably going to be some jobs, whether it's not jobs, work, whether it's in trucking, construction, whatever work you're in, that may be coming your way because of this industry and the other industries that come in. But, as far as all of these various problems, we don't have any real control over those. And in fact, I was gonna confirm with Mr. Phelan here, and actually, Mr. Phelan, you shouldn't be pointing directly at him. He's just part of the city. It's the city of Grand Forks. Mr. Phelan's a very nice guy. You'd enjoy having dinner with him. Very, very congenial and well-spoken. So,
I had a drink with Bob Bushfield when he retired too.
yeah. There's a name from the past. So anyway, I'm not gonna go on any further about it, but this is only one step. There are probably 40 more steps. If this is approved, there could be a stumbling block in step 25 and this project doesn't come in. So that's where it's at. If you're concerned about environmental water, Mr. Phelan would tell you that at the first time I heard about this at this meeting, I raised the same issues.
Well, my attorney tells me they already have the stumbling block.
Yeah.
So I'm just making you aware of this.
Right, but I'm gonna have to have faith in the city that they're gonna solve these problems so that this city can grow. But
I'd like to have faith too, excuse me.
Ernie,
I'd like to have faith too, but the sample of the byproduct that I got from the Red River Bioplant, which Mr. Phelan, Mr. Congeniality, I'm sorry, I hate to go down that road, but this is a business issue to him. This is my grandkids to me.
I realize that.
Okay, this was a true sample from the bioplant. Okay, going back to, they're gonna watch this, they're gonna make sure they take, 2 fines, they let them off. Can I ask your opinion on that? Just give me a straight up answer. What do you think of that?
Because I don't know enough about what.
All right, okay, then I'll let that go. So how many times before enough is enough that we have to smell? Okay, the reason I brought this sample was, it wasn't to be rude and cause trouble. It was to let them know what a lot of people have to put up with because they live there. But because he lives somewhere else, it only happens once, so often. Okay, open that can up and smell that can, and then picture yourself having a barbecue outside, and then say, something, here we are again. And I don't mean to be negative, because I'll tell you what, I love our farmers, but you know what that plant is like. And I talked to Mr. Weber after the meeting that night, and I did agree with him. I'm not saying that, but he said, and I said, we have enough smells in this town, and this plant, as big as it is gonna just, when it happens, I just want to be on record as saying, here I am, okay? Here I am. And I don't think we can stop this because I know they got the ball rolling. But I'm here to make a point down the road that when this thing does go bad, we tried to fight it, and that's all I can do. But I will say, back to the sample, he wouldn't smell it. Okay, if you're coming across as being fair about this thing, smell what it smells like, Mr. Phelan, and see if you like it. Now, that's not the worst part. I like that smile on your face. Wipe it off when I tell you, this stuff is fed to the cattle that you go to the Texas Roadhouse and eat. So put that in your mind and say, wow, this is good stuff. This is really a high price, $20, $30 steak. And remember that what I had in that coffee can last night is being fed right now by the truckloads after truckloads to the cows. Rest my case, back to my grandkids.
And I thank you, commissioners, for
Thank
being
you, thank
much
you.
more
I didn't expect to
acceptive
get an
of us
audience tonight.
than we were at the city council.
I do
I
appreciate
really
you listening.
appreciate that. And I could see that there were several people actually listening to what I said.
Mr. Phelan, anything additional?
We've had quite a bit of meetings. We have a lot of responsibility on our hands. We do get that. And whatever Mr. Spicer has provided, Mr. Cadillac, we have taken that to our minds, and we have a lot of obligations, so we take that seriously. And we have a lot of burden on us. And so we think we should move forward. We've encouraged our city council to move forward with the development agreement so that we can start researching and get some of these answers. There's gonna be a lot of approval processes within that agreement, whether it's environmental permits from the state or the federal government, our own permits that we have to provide proof on. As you well know, the planning and zoning annexation process is all an open process and is a lengthy process. So there'll be plenty of opportunities for further voices on all these variety of issues. And I know one thing about Mr. Spicer, he'll hold us all accountable.
Yes, I think you will. Does the commission have any questions or anything more? Yes.
Any questions, but I do have some comments, and just to let you gentlemen know, I have watched the last 3 city council meeting minutes, and it's disturbing to me, what I see, and to me, I think I like to have open discussion, be open and honest, forthright, and everything, treating.
I don't mean to interrupt you, Diane. I can't hear you. I'm hard of hearing.
Well,
Thank you. I'm sorry.
Step up a little bit.
I can do this. So-
Okay, I'll
So
step up.
anyhow.
My fault.
You know, and no disrespect to anybody, the city has done, and EDC have done an amazing job, and, you know, proud that we have them in our community and that they are doing this for our community, but I also believe in meeting the needs of the people, our constituents, and that you have the opportunity to be heard and to be heard in a respectful manner. And I don't necessarily see that that's happened. And, but again, I believe in compromise, and what I can't support this, I'm sorry, at this point. I think it's an opportunity for our community, but I can't support it right now at this point. I know Mr. Spicer's wife had talked about having made some contacts with like the Department of Defense, Homeland Security, talking to people on the Canadian border with respect to the water coming through there and the effects that has on them. And while I know her and I trust her, that she would not have said something like that if it wasn't true. You know, and that was brought to the attention of the city council, and I don't know what they have done or not done with that. But my biggest concern is, I guess, the Department of Defense, Homeland Security, that sort of thing, just because of some of the other entities that we have in our community, which I think are huge, with respect to security and things like that. And so what I'd like to see, and I guess before I could ever support this, is where you folks can come together, sit down, and have a conversation, you know, keeping in mind that when people come before the city council or before the commission or whatever, you know, that's a really intimidating process. And there's a lot of people that aren't going to come and aren't going to stand up and say what they want because of the intimidation. It isn't that we're making them intimidated, it's just standing up there and speaking, because it's not what some of us or most of us do on a regular basis. And so when you don't think you're being heard, people get angry. And I think there's other avenues that we can take and compromise, work together, and move on. I think that we can do that. But people need to be heard. They need to be listened to. If they have questions on, like I say, I have it on security, you know, and defense and things like that. And you know, that's all I would encourage, strongly encourage that you folks do, is listen to each other's side, answer the questions the best you can. If you can't answer, get an answer, and work together. And so that we can move this forward if that's possible, because that's important. It's important to our community, but it's also important to the people that live here. And I guess I don't know if I have anything else to say with that, but other than I can't support it as it is today, just because I have many of the same feelings that these individuals have.
You are outstanding and may God bless you.
Thank you.
I'll heed your advice. I apologize. It's not personal, but it tends to get that way.
Any other comments here? Ms. Peach, are you still with us?
Yes, I am. Yes, I am, sir.
Any comments or questions or anything?
No, it's been very thorough. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Well, I think, unless I misunderstood Mr. Phelan, the city needs a decision from this commission tonight on the pilot program itself. No, that's not gonna make this program, to make Fufang happen, but they need a decision from us that we're going to support it. So, the question for this commission is there a motion to approve the pilot program or the pilot request for Fufang?
Make that motion.
Motion.
I would like to say something afterwards in
Yeah.
discussion as well.
Okay. Motion by Commissioner Ian to approve. Is there a second?
Mr. Chair, I would second that motion.
Thank you, Commissioner Peach. Okay, are there, Mr. Ingen's already indicated comments. Any other comments? Mr. Ingen, your comments, please.
Well, I'm kind of echoing both what Commissioner Knopf and Chair Falk has said. This is not a county project. We're an important part of it, and I do believe that the pilot programs and TIF programs are long-range, excellent programs for the Grand Forks area. We do have to grow, or our friends of the south will just continue to grow twice as big as they are, and it's not like we're in direct competition, but we are proud of the Grand Forks area and would like to see it thrive. As Mr. Phelan said, and as I've noticed being on the Economic Development Board, that there are lots of steps that need to be done. And if there are ways to solve those, they'll come up in the next 6 months, maybe, or however long it takes. But those of us on the commission who have to deal with these facts on this one minor issue, I don't see that we should be the ones to stop the project in its tracks right now. There's plenty of opportunity to find out whether it's going to be a project, a fair project to everybody. We know it's going to be an economic boon, but we have to listen to the people who live there too. By the same token, as Commissioner Falk said, if you are living on the edge of a city, there is a time when most places are going to get annexed. It happened to their group or where they live. I live in Northwood, so nobody's annexing us. So I don't quite know what you guys are going through, but I'm in favor of pushing it to the next step and going from there and trying to make this work for everybody. So that's why I move approval.
Comments? Nope. Okay. Nope. Any comment, Commissioner Peach? Muted.
No, I don't at this time. Thank you.
Okay, just want to make sure you have a chance, so. All right. we
Thank
have
you.
a second. All in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Opposed.
Commissioner Knopf opposes. Motion for the pilot program for Fufang passes. Thank you, everyone. Thank you. You don't have to stay for the rest of our meeting. That's not required. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. I really, really do. Thank you.
Good night.
Good night.
Okay. Highway Department, Mr. West.
Good evening.
You're gonna take as long as the city?
I hope not, sir.
Thank you.
I don't think, yeah, we're gonna quite get controversial, but, I don't think anyway. We have been, we've been approached by Otter Tail Power about expanding a substation and potentially selling some land. There's a substation on County Road 11 near the town of McCanna that, Otter Tail Power is looking to increase the size of. Currently, right now, the county owns the land. And we've leased it to them since I think 1973. It's a lump sum. We did like a $1 one-time fee, and they've been able to use it. And to my knowledge, we haven't had any issues with the substation. Everything's gone fine since then. What the kicker to the request is there's a new fertilizer and elevator upgrade in McCanna, and they're looking to do some.
Yeah.
With the increase, they want some more power in this, and then just the needs of the area have grown and power usage have gone up, and they need to expand the station. The question becomes, to us, instead of leasing it, they'd like to purchase that. And so that's the main request before the board. That's the main issue. They have proposed a plat of the area, what they're proposing. Our minimum requirement on right of way is 75 feet each way of the center line. On horizontal curves, it'd be nice to have a little bit more. And they've offered, Otter Tail Power has offered, if we have suggestions, they're certainly open to it. There hasn't been any discussion back and forth that way. And we do have a representative from Otter Tail Power here today with us too to help answer some questions. The land, just so you're aware, this is the old highway US 2. The DOT started acquiring the land back in the 1920s and 30s. They built the new US 2 and then gave the land to us. So the DOT acquired the property and then deeded it over to the county, just as a background. So yes, up in front of there, that's where the substation is. It's in the corner. There's a horizontal curve in the road, and there's essentially a triangle shaped piece of where the substation sits. The highway department's, suggestion is I don't have a real strong opinion one way or another. I would lean toward not selling land. I'd rather just lease them additional land for them, but I don't have a real strong opinion one way or another.
Commissioner Hoff.
So a couple questions.
Yeah.
So I forgot them. So why would we not want to just sell it and be done with it? I mean, who's taking care of it as far as maintenance and weed control and all that other stuff?
My knowledge is there's a local farmer that pays it.
Okay. And so how big is that area, that corner?
Um,
And there's other corners that have that little same doodad.
oh, absolutely.
Are they ours as well?
Some are, some aren't.
Okay. But I guess my biggest concern is why would we not want to sell?
Just so we have control of the land. It's usually nice to have more land, right?
No.
Yeah, not out in the middle of nowhere. Yeah. Is the power company interested in buying it? I'm getting a big nod over here.
$26,000 an acre.
Yeah.
There we go.
Excellent. Negotiations here, okay.
I mean, I guess I just don't see any reason to hang on to it. I mean, it's nothing that we could ever sell to anybody else. And even if the tower went, it's nothing we could ever use. Other than put up some kind of a county marker or whatever. But what's the, I don't see the point in us hanging on to it.
No.
If they want to buy it and take it over.
Now, would they buy the entire parcel there? It's not much, not very large, or
That's what you guys want. Yeah, that's totally
then
fine.
we'd be out.
Yeah, we don't have to worry about it.
Yeah.
They can maintain it.
Yes, Ms. Swanson.
Mr. Chair, members of the board, Mr. West and I did previously discuss this. I did have an opportunity to review the documents provided, just so that the board is clear, the current property that Otter Tail Company is using at this time, it's not leased from the county to Otter Tail, but they have a easement and a right of way. And I think, I don't mean to speak for Mr. West, but just based on our prior conversations on this topic, I think one of the concerns he mentioned to me was that if there was ever a need to widen a road or change the slope of the ditch or something like that, it would be easier to handle if the county owned the property, but we just expanded the footprint of the easement that was in place to allow for them to meet their needs and with what they need to do. Correct me if I'm wrong.
That's correct, yes.
Or we could sell it and reserve an easement along the road.
That would be an option.
My one suggestion was is if we were to sell it, that we maybe keep 100 feet next to our road instead of 75, that if we did want to do some work on the road and flattening slopes, which is always an issue, if we ever could get to that stage of our program, that would be really nice to do. We just have some extra space.
Well, I'm seeing the tenor of this board right now is that we're looking for you to negotiate with them to sell that property and maintain an easement.
Yeah.
Is that, am I hearing right here, folks?
Yeah. I think you indicated 100 feet would be fine.
Yeah, we're getting a lot of nods over here from your.
Okay.
Yes, so.
Slightly less controversial than the last talk.
Yeah, that's what I thought. Very much
But it
so.
doesn't affect that many people.
Go to work with the power company and get back to us.
So, well, to selling land, I thought that would be a board decision.
Well, we need to hear what the details of the negotiations are as far as what the sale price, if they're agreeable to the 100-foot easement. I don't think we can do that all here tonight, but
Work on it and then bring it back.
yeah,
Strike a deal.
we're amenable to it.
Okay.
They need power in the county.
All right,
Sounds good.
next topic.
Next topic. There we go.
That was easy.
Yeah. Next item is certificate of local match request. This is, again, we had one last meeting, is it, every time we have a federal aid project, we have our local match. And essentially, we have another invoice for our bridge inspections. And we have a local match that our payment was approved through your consent agenda. And we'd be looking for auditor and chairman's signature on the certification form. The money's coming out of 2150. We have funds to cover it.
I'll make a motion to approve
I second.
the signature, Chairman, where is Chairman and Ms. Nelson's signature on the local match? Bridge inspection.
Okay.
They had a source 2150. Okay.
Thank you. And we get a second from you. didn't we?
Yes, yeah.
Second from Ross. All right, any further discussions? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, motion passes.
Thank you. My next item for consideration is, last meeting I mentioned we got a grant to replace a bridge on County Road 5, South Manville. In that same request I made to the state, there was two bridges right next to each other. That'd be really nice to do at the same time. So, and County Road 5 and County Road 11 in that area flood frequently, go underwater. You had to do a lot of repair work on them. County 5 is federal aid route. It's not eligible for FEMA reimbursement. We usually end up eating it because there is money available to fix federal aid routes, but the minimum cap is so high that our damages usually don't qualify for it. So usually it's just county expenses that have to fix it. I approached the water board last meeting and said, hey, we should do a study on this road to see what would it take to get this road high and dry. I think it's very doable. However, I know that area is highly sensitive. It's been studied by FEMA. There's floodplain maps and certification forms that all have to be done. It would take a while, but they said, sure, it'd be great to do. And I'm working with their engineer on that, Kriegel Engineering right now, through that process. Also last week, I listened to North Dakota Association of Counties presentation that talked about the final ruling on ARPA funds. And they mentioned that it's a little easier for highway departments to get money up to maybe $10 million without justification. And so I gotta ask if there could be ARPA funds available to help, once our study is done, to implement some of the improvements, maybe a bridge or raise a road to help make this road, I'll just call it flood-proof. That's my consideration, request for the board.
My question is,
Yes,
are these ARPA funds in addition to the ARPA funds we've received now, or are you asking for 5 million of the ARPA funds we've already received to do this project? Would that make any sense?
Mr. Chairman, members of the commission, it is the money that we have right now.
Okay.
It's not any new money.
Okay, and that's what I just need to clarify.
Yeah.
I think one of the problems, Mr. West, is that ARPA funds is the way that we're gonna somehow add on to our correctional center. So I think we've talked about that, you know, at length, and our project is already going to be condensed dramatically right now, the way it stands. So for me personally, I'm gonna have a hard time pulling that money out of that project. Good idea.
Yeah.
It would be a nice way to go, but we have other
Yeah.
bigger
Issues. Bigger issues. Yeah.
issues.
Thought I'd ask.
Yeah. You never know what you might get, huh?
Maybe we'll get 3 million back from the city.
There you go. Well, 1.6 million would do the other bridge right next to it, would be really nice.
Okay.
Do both at the same time, so. If I were to concede and do a little bit, that would be a nice project. My last request, it wasn't on the agenda. And it won't be at the next meeting. I put a piece of paper on the desk, this one.
Yeah.
I didn't make it on the agenda, and I won't be at the March 1st meeting. I'll be in Bismarck for a construction conference. So it'd be another month, and I would like to ask permission to bid 3 projects. We have money budgeted for them. It's for box culverts. The first 2 on the list, I already got quotes for, and I thought we'd be able to do them for under the 100,000 mark, but inflation's taken over, and the total projects are going to be over. Therefore, I got to bid them. And so that's my request would be just get permission to bid these 3 box culvert projects, and then I'll come back to the board with bid results. So
Make a motion.
Appreciate that. We have a motion to bid the projects, which really means we don't have to accept them anyway, so we're not really making much progress here, but that's a good start. We have a second. Second by Commissioner Engen. Any further discussion? All in favor, signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? You're good to go.
thank you. That is all I have. Any questions?
No.
Okay.
I'm losing my- Oh, yeah. Finance and tax.
Members of the commission, I had 4 items on the agenda today. 2 of them I'm not going to talk about today. I'm going to talk about March 1st, which is the 2022 polling places. I'm not ready to make a recommendation yet on that. And then I'll do the election inspectors at the same time. But I would like approval for early voting precinct at the Alara Center, Tuesday, June 7th through June 11th. Saturday with the times listed there on the screen. And I also have the century code which approves doing so. So I'd like a motion to approve the early voting.
I would make that motion.
I would second, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Commissioner Peach. We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes.
And the other item I have is an absentee ballot precinct for the June 14th, 2022 primary election. So I'd like a motion to establish that precinct.
We have a motion to establish an absentee ballot precinct.
I'm gonna do it right here.
Okay.
I'll make a motion.
Thank you. We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second, and any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, motion passes.
That's it. Thank you.
Director of Administration.
Chairman, members of the commission, I'm going to condense my report tonight.
Appreciate it.
I don't think there's anything controversial. Couple of things. At the capital improvements meeting, or I should say the public safety and infrastructure meeting, I was asked to get some pricing on carpet and painting for the commission office. Mr. Krzyzewski ran that down. The good news is we have surplus from when the first floor south office was recarpeted. We can just use that, but there's not quite enough. So for Sterling to order the remaining amount and then do the rip the existing out and install, looking at $3,500 when that's all said and done. Mr. Krzyzewski also had a lot of paint on hand. He did, excuse me, need to go get some extra. He asked if he should just wait, and I said, just go get some, and we'll charge it to the commission miscellaneous for now because it's such a minimal amount. But that was $233.03. So all in all, Mr. Chairman, members of the commission, the total for the carpet and paint would be $3,733.03. So would request that all of that come out of capital improvements, and I would just work with Ms. Nelson to reimburse the commission miscellaneous out of the $233 the commission approves.
I would make that
Members of the
motion.
commission, you've already made a motion to replace the carpet
Oh,
at the last meeting. So
wonderful.
we didn't have a dollar amount, but.
Okay, there's the dollar amount.
There's a dollar amount.
Painting was done by the county, right?
Correct.
So we're good there. Okay, anything else?
Thank you, Ms. Nelson. I do have one thing. I visited with Colonel Curry last week. Our wing commander, whom most of you probably know. I know a couple of you know him. We were actually going to visit about a few things, but you may or may not know, last week, one of his airmen committed suicide. And this is the fourth death he's dealt with since he's been in leadership at the air base now. And it's something that they're not obviously broadcasting, but we did talk, and it's kind of hard for me to say even for myself, but as we look at COVID and things that are going on, mental health continues to be something that comes up that people are struggling with and people are dealing with, especially in the Air Force today, and with now the fourth death that Colonel Curry has dealt with, not in his position, of course, but since he's been in leadership. We've been working with the Air Force. We've been working as a county, and as a BRIC, we've been working with our partners and all true. And there is a mental health provider shortage nationally, but we talk about as a community, what more can we do to support the base and the Air Force, or we have to support them on this front. And then we hear that someone takes their life again out there. I just would just urge the commission that this continue to be a topic that we don't go by the wayside, that the county commission and the county keep as a priority, and keep working with the base and our partners on this issue. And Colonel Curry asked that I express his gratitude to the county commission for your partnership and continuing to support his airmen and quality of life, and just remind the commission that this is still a very serious issue they're dealing with, especially at Grand Forks Air Force Base. And I'll stop there. But just wanted to convey his thanks and for the support and request to continue supporting. I think with that, Mr. Chair, Association of Defense Communities annual summit is in 2 weeks. Mr. Bradshaw at the Jim Bradshaw will be honored at the national summit for a lifetime of service to the Air Force and Grand Forks Air Force Base. So that will take place, and he'll be mad at me for bringing this up because we all know him. He doesn't look for accolades, but it should be brought up. And so March 6th, Monday at 5:30, there'll be a program honoring Jim Bradshaw in Washington, DC. So that concludes my report.
Well-deserved honor for Mr. Bradshaw. Thank you. State's Attorney is next.
I have nothing for the board. Thank you.
Okay, committee reports. Commissioner Peach.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I have nothing to report tonight either.
Thank you. Commissioner Ross.
MPO is coming up tomorrow. I had a fair board meeting last week, but ended up in the emergency room for 3 hours, so I missed that meeting. And that's about all I got.
Thank you. Commissioner Engen.
Well, I thought I had something in my calendar, but since I carry a paper calendar and it's in my car, I guess I have no report. I don't think I remember what it was I was going to talk about.
Commissioner Knopf.
And I really don't have anything to speak of.
Okay, I've got the building committee. Oh, I got the deal here. The building committee, I'm not even sure what I call it, but it's we've got that committee now that we're going to pick a construction manager. Is that fair to say, Mr.?
Oh, yes, sir.
For the detention center and the correctional center. And we met with ICON and ran over it, and we're going to conduct interviews sometime here in the next 3 weeks. Those people are going to assist us on that. So that's being set up. We met with the RIC consultants, our generals, this morning online. Weather, we've had some issues on weather, and I don't want to delay this meeting or keep us here. It's already 6:15, it looks like. But I'm going to ask Commissioner Ross, and I talked to some of these people beforehand, Kari and Michelle and Sheriff Snyder, to get together and form some thoughts or parameters on closing during weather so that we can close. I've heard from some people have called and said you need to close earlier because it creates problems for us, and they're right. But can we factor in the wind, other closings in the community? This last time, Bill Grashevsky, head of our buildings and grounds, indicated that it was so icy down here around the buildings that he could not salt or take care of it, and it was a danger. So that would have been bad for not only employees, but we had somebody stop down here, we're at a potential lawsuit at any time. So we need to take some of those things into consideration. Sheriff Snyder has indicated maybe he shouldn't be the one making the decision. I think we could check with a few counties, see how the other counties are doing it. This goes back, I think, to I started here, Emmons Christie, the sheriff, and I think it goes back before him.
Right.
Yes, Sam.
Chairman, both members of the commission, I'm actually maybe one step ahead of you on the dry pavement out in front of the commission. I did check with Cass County and Burley County, and Cass County does basically what I suggested. Similarly, they have their director of administration make that call for the buildings. And the reason this kind of came to light for multiple reasons, but I think the overall one that I've been reflecting on is I don't believe that I should be in charge of all of the county employees. My duty is to keep the public and the roads safe and enforce the laws and whatnot, not to distinguish whether or not the county buildings should be open or the county employees should be coming to work in those buildings. Reference 2020 into 2021, the COVID closures, that wasn't up to me, that was up to the commission. So I think it would be fair to relinquish those duties to either the chair or the county administrator, along with emergency management and not the sheriff.
Okay. And Mr. Ford should be in it too. Thank you. I think maybe we'll start on Barnes here for a short period of time.
Yeah.
I appreciate that. That's concern. Okay.
I have a question.
Yeah. Okay. Are you folks agreeable to meeting? Okay. And go ahead.
Well, my question is, and who should do this? So would Kari be willing to do that or able? I mean, you certainly are capable or able.
I think what I'd like is them to come back to us with a little information
Okay,
and
all
then
right.
we'll come up with a plan here. And hopefully, you know, I think last year, I don't think we had to close. It was such a wonderful winter, but this year it's a nightmare. Hopefully we don't have any more of these, so.
I'll hold your road, sir.
I know, you're doing a little over there. Thank you. Okay. Okay,
So who's the group then? Is it Tom or is it Andy?
Andy,
Or Andy
Michelle, Kari and Bob. Bob, I'm putting Bob on because he's been through this for 40 years, so.
I think Commissioner Ross drafted me, Commissioner.
Yeah,
Vogt.
well, you're always welcome. Anybody that wants to sit in is fine.
Drafted.
Oh, all right. We also had a home rule meeting. We're moving along with that. It may not be exactly the way that you folks or some of you think, but I'm gonna ask that you wait until the charter comes back from this group. This is really a good group of people. I'm just impressed with them. It's a cross section of the county. We've got a couple of people from out in the county, others representing fairly substantial numbers of employees or people in this community. They're engaged and I'll say this right out. They do not believe that we can pass this as a sales tax alone initiative. And so we're putting together a charter that I think will be attractive to have something in it for almost every voter. They may not like some of it, but there's going to be some that they're going to like, and it's various things. So when we get it put together, we'll bring it back to you. The charter committee also isn't quite sure if it should be two separate. Actually, there are some that believe there should be two separate votes, one on the charter and one on the tax, that you could easily explain both of them on a separate basis. And if you have the tax on it would be nice if you would explain. I'll throw this out. I suggested at our meeting. Is Nick here yet? No, he's
No, he
gone.
just left.
Too bad. He's gonna miss out. But that I think that maybe a half cent would be a positive step or a step that we could go. And I've talked to Ms. Nelson about it, but I'm gonna suggest, and the charter group seemed to be in agreement or liking it, that we could use 60% of the money from that sales tax for the building projects, which would probably get us a sheriff's building also. And in fact, if we went 25 years, we'd probably pay that off early. And the other 20% would go to property tax relief and 20% would go to the highway department for, we're never gonna fix the culverts and bridges with the money we have right now.
No.
So that would generate about $1 million a year for them. So, county residents would get some money out in their roads and bridges. There'd be some property tax relief. We'd get the buildings without adding on to the mill levy. And also we would add in that if the buildings were paid off early, which I think they would be, especially if our community would grow like with Fufang or whatever, and they start paying in taxes, that the balance of that 60% would then go towards property tax also relief, which would be a significant amount of money towards property tax relief. So I would ask that you just wait until we get it in front of you, take a look at it. If you don't like it, then you can stab me in the chest. So.
And if you miss him, you can get me.
Yeah. Stab Bob first because he's probably wearing Kevlar. Yes, if you're not.
Was the Burley County charter shared with the Grand Forks County charter?
No, I don't know. All that stuff kind of went out in an email. I can't say one way or the other. I couldn't tell you right now.
Because, when we went into this, and I think it was on December 17th or something like that, when we talked about it as a commission, that we were looking at going with the home rule for the purpose of hopefully passing for tax purposes, revenue, that sort of thing. And it seems like it's kind of built and grown out of that now. And I mean, I've sat at 3 of the meetings or 2 of the meetings, 3 of the meetings, whatever. You know, and so what I'm hearing is from the chamber is that they aren't going to support it if tax is included. And two of the other members have indicated they wouldn't probably support it if tax is included.
No, no. No, that's, you're not quite hearing it right. They'll support it, but not as just a tax. They believe it should be a home rule charter that also has the ability for sales tax. They don't like it as a home rule charter with sales tax as the only real trigger point.
Except
They
that that's
want-
the only reason we're doing it.
Right, but you
And so do
can't
they
sell
know
it.
that
You
that's the
cannot
wishes
sell
of the
it.
commission?
We're not going to sell it. I'm sorry.
Oh,
I'm not going to sell it that way.
But that was the only reason we went into this.
Right.
And the public knows that that's the reason we're into this. And so,
The group does not believe it will pass at an election that way. And I agree with them. I don't think it will. Yes.
If you lay it out 60, 20, 20,
Would that,
then they'll understand that, especially with property tax relief.
Yeah.
would that be in the charter though, the 60?
Yeah, well, we're still working that. I just brought up that, I came
Because-
up with that here at the last meeting, the half cent and the split off and everything. So we have not worked on that yet.
The other aspects of home rule are something that going forward, I think this county should have. But in any event, there has to be a separate vote on sales tax.
Yeah.
So people in the county just think that if they pass this, we can just change the tax rate anytime we want.
Right,
They
it would
vote
have,
every time.
it would have to probably be, the question would be if it would be on the ballot in two spots. First of all, we pass home rule and then you agree to the half cent sales tax, or if that would be at a later election. You know, and I agree, but I think we all have to keep in mind that home rule, we should be setting this county up and the commissions that are going to sit in these chairs for the next 50 to 100 years. And that's what home rule will do. Now, and there are some things in there we've talked about. There's referendum that the public could come back and, you know, if they don't like something we did, enough signatures to put it on the ballot. We're talking about term limits.
Yeah.
Which at our particular age, it isn't going to matter, folks, but well, yeah, sorry, yeah, you probably come from a long-lived family. But, you know, they're talking about 3-4 years starting once it's passed, and so it isn't gonna matter to us. But a lot of people like term limits, so that's something that people would support. A lot of people, and I kind of resent this, think that I'm pushing this because I want a county administrator. And well, I think that that is a good plan at some point for the county. I'm not pushing it right at this time. And I kind of resent a lot of, Mr. Ford resents some of the things that have been said. You know, in fact, I asked Ms. Wamstead here about 10 days ago, I said, I can't even find it in this charter. I don't even think it's there. So it's not something I was planning as we were going along with this. And it's actually, it is in a, I would call it a general section of the charter, which made me think, boy, if they could do that from just this general section, there's a lot of unanticipated problems down the road that could be dealt with through a charter because it generally gives you power. And so those are things that we could do to help ourselves out. So that's where it's at, and I hate to go on with this, and I'm gonna have coffee with Ms. Knopf, even if I have to buy it for her. And we'll visit about this, so.
well, you know, it's just that Burley County, I mean, we all looked at this when Ms. Nelson gave us a copy of it and made comment, most of us, that it said exactly what we wanted our charter to say.
It's a sales tax charter.
Sales tax charter.
But our
that-
group says it's not gonna pass, Commissioner Knopf.
Well, what about what the commissioners think? And how
I
do
think
we
we're
know
too
that?
isolated. We don't realize what's out there in the community, and these folks do. They're out there talking to their members and they're some of them constituents or whatever, and they know.
We're the ones that are being held responsible.
If we don't get the business community supported, it's a lost cause.
Dan, I don't think so. I think that if we adopted something like this, it's concise, it's clear, it's to the point, the public absolutely knows what it is that we are trying to do. It doesn't have all that mumbo jumbo that's in the Cass County one. It speaks to, it speaks to the charter and it speaks to the tax. And that keeps it simple. We can be open and honest, and it's precise, and it says what we're looking to do. And I don't think then that you even have to say, well, 60% is for this and 40% is for that or whatever. It's for the sales tax. It's for our needs that we have, our building needs.
The 60% in 2020 attracts voters that are gonna support it. And rural people are gonna support it because of the roads and bridges. Bringing those ideas out there.
All right.
So anyway, yeah, let's talk about it when it comes in. Any other questions or problems? Nelson, you have something? Okay, motion, Mr. Rost.
To adjourn. Thank you.
Thank you. Second, somebody? Second, Mr. Ingen. All in favor?
Aye.
Hi,
Ms. Beach, are you doing all right out there?
I'm doing just fine, thank you.
Good to hear.
So.
She's in a cast. I don't know if you heard that.
No.